What's up guys? Today I'm going to run through the exact method that I used to get a 99 plus ATAR. I attended what was considered an average school, ranked around 100th in the state, and graduated over 10 years ago. While there is no substitute for working hard, I believe how you study is just as important as how much you study. Understanding how the statewide external examinations works and knowing how to maximize your marks can make a significant difference. In this video, I'll go through the strategies and insights that help me achieve the 99 plus ATAR. First thing to understand is how your subject choices can influence your ATAR. This mainly comes down to scaling, which is a process of adjusting the statewide external exam marks to account for the overall academic strength of the each course's cohort. Subjects with stronger performing cohorts generally scale more favorably than those with weaker cohorts. A well-known example is Maths Extension 2, which typically scales very strongly. Students often don't need as high a raw mark as they would in Mathematics Standard to achieve a similarly high scaled result. By comparison, even an excellent raw mark in Mathematics Standard may scale down because of the larger and more varied cohort. Same principle applies to English. Advanced English generally scales more favorably than Standard English because of the strength of its cohort. If you are capable of succeeding in more academically demanding subjects that scale well, I think it's worth taking advantage of that. Personally, choosing higher scaling subjects helped me to maximize my final ATAR. That said, don't choose subjects solely because they scale well. You should only take them if you can actually enjoy it and believe you can perform strongly. A high raw mark in a subject that you excel at is usually worth more than a mediocre mark in a high scaling subject that you're struggling with. To achieve a 99 plus ATAR, you'll generally need good results across most of your units. For many students, that means achieving Band 6 results in at least 10 units. However, there are exceptions. Some students reach a 99 plus ATAR without all Band 6s because they score exceptionally well in a few subjects, with marks in the high 90s that scale extremely well. I was so interested in understanding scaling that I researched historical scaling data and compared raw marks with their scaled equivalents from previous years. I also used an ATAR calculator to estimate the marks I would need to achieve my target. This helped me identify which subjects deserve the greatest amount of study time. Another important concept is the difference between internal and external marks. Your internal assessment mark is determined by your school's assessment process, and importantly, your ranking within your cohort. After the statewide external exams, these assessment marks are moderated using your school's external exam performance. This means that your final internal mark depends far more on your ranking than on the individual percentages you received throughout the year. For example, scoring 95% in your final school assessment doesn't necessarily mean you will receive a final internal mark of 95%. If you ranked second in your cohort, your moderated assessment mark will ultimately depend on how your cohort performs in the statewide external exam. Your external mark, on the other hand, comes entirely from the statewide external exam. It is not affected by your school assessment marks or your ranking. Since the external exam makes up 50% of your final subject mark, performing well on the actual exam day is absolutely essential. Together, your moderated internal mark and your external exam mark each contribute 50% to your final statewide external exam mark for the subject. Because of this system, school ranking matters. If you attend a highly competitive school where many students perform exceptionally well in the statewide external exam, even an average internal ranking can still moderate to a very strong assessment mark. However, if your school cohort is very weak, being rank 1 internally is actually very important. One of the best ways to prepare for the statewide external exam is by completing past exam papers. Learn the types of questions that are commonly asked and become familiar with the official marking guidelines. Study the syllabus carefully so you know exactly what can be examined. There is very little value in spending hours learning content that isn't part of the course. A large part of effective revision is anticipating the kinds of questions that are likely to appear. During my statewide external exam, I spent a lot of time working through recent Board of Studies past papers. I recommend focusing on more recent exams, as older papers may reflect outdated syllabuses or different question styles. Complete several papers under time conditions and mark them honestly using official solutions and marking guidelines. This not only improves your knowledge, but also teaches you how marks are actually awarded. Private tutoring also played a significant role in helping me achieve Band 6 results. Experienced tutors often understand exactly what exam markers are looking for because they have achieved excellent results themselves or have spent years teaching the statewide external exam. They can identify weaknesses you may not notice on your own and provide targeted feedback. Some tuition centres have built strong reputations because they consistently produce excellent statewide external exam results. They often provide highly structured programs and expose students to very challenging questions that may not be covered extensively at school. Being surrounded by motivated students can also create a competitive environment that encourages you to improve. As for my study technique, I found active recall far more effective than simply reading notes. I would say important concepts aloud while simultaneously writing them down. I wasn't concerned about producing neat notes. I simply wanted to process the information actively by scribbling away on scrap paper. Writing quickly also allowed me to cover much more material in less time. After reviewing a topic, I would put my notes away and try to write everything I could remember from memory. I repeated this process until I could recall the information confidently without referring back to my notes. Personally, I found this much more effective than rereading material or using flashcards. Flashcards can certainly work for some people, but I preferred methods that allowed me to revise larger amounts of content much more efficiently. I also avoided spending too much time revising material that I already knew. For subjects like maths, I rarely repeated questions I could already solve comfortably unless I was completing an entire past paper. Instead, I focused on my weakest areas so that I could tackle a wider variety of difficult questions. One thing I wish I had done differently was begin memorizing content much earlier. I relied heavily on rote learning and cramming, which meant that much of my knowledge was short term. While this strategy worked well enough to achieve a 99 plus ATAR, I think I could have performed even better if I had started committing information to long-term memory several months before the exams. Rather than beginning serious memorization only a week or two before the exams, I recommend building your knowledge gradually over several months and then increasing the intensity of your revision as exam day approaches. The final couple of weeks before the statewide external exam are especially important. This is when you should be consolidating everything you've learned and completing as many challenging questions as possible. During this period, I often studied around 10 hours a day with only short breaks. Another resource I found incredibly useful was high-quality study notes created by top-performing or state-ranking students. There are excellent free resources online, and I was able to fortunately find some comprehensive notes that covered almost every syllabus dot point for my subjects. They were also very in-depth in their understanding of the knowledge required for the exams. The guys that made these notes worked super hard, much harder than me, as I did not create my own notes and it would have taken them a long time to do them. Just make sure that the notes match the current syllabus. If the syllabus has changed, you'll need to fill in any gaps by yourself. That's all for this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I wish everyone studying for the statewide external exams and aiming for a high ATAR the very best of luck.